past. You will remain in the past. Can I get a fucking yeah?
I'm the man, yes sir, that killed a bear barehanded so the people won't forget it. Getting money for I was legal to drink. I care what a broke nigga think.
Just like the pack of Lewis.
Look, everything I do so cold. I can do this, both eyes closed. Too short, I stay on my toes. About that guap boy, anything goes. Help the bear if we outside. Help the bear if we outside. Still tipping, baby, nothing changed. I'm still grinding over here, yeah. Still sliding through my own lane. Shorty, nothing funny over here. Dallas rain everywhere around me. Dream to get money. Made it through the storm, living sunny. Dreams came true, now we eating. I got more dreams to chase, gotta reach them. Trying to put a team together like the Hunger Games. Everybody grinding cause we all came from hunger pain.
Oh, late ill kid at OneYoungsta, hold it down, bring that StreetGeek and NERDSoul. What is up, my people? Today, it's the morning time during the week. Normally, you don't get this. You know what I'm saying? Normally, you don't get morning time during the week. All right, come on now. But we had to form up real quick. So, without further ado, NERDSoul, hip hop and geek, we put it together here, have a good time, and I thank y'all for rolling through, whether you're here on the chat or on the replay. Go on and like, share, subscribe, all that, all right? But over here, I'm joined by an esteemed colleague, part of the dream team, as Malcolm Lee would call us. Solar Gray, the cinematic sorcerer. What's up?
Hey guys, how you doing? Yes, I am the cinematic sorcerer, and oh, someone has incurred the wrath of the wizard.
Yeah, so this is going to be a cool episode. So, all right. So to get started, Picard is a TV show. You guys know I covered it. I think I covered the season review last year. And of course, Picard is a show. It's on Paramount Plus. Star Trek Picard. He's going through his journeys and adventures. After his retirement. You know what I'm saying? You just keep pulling him back in. Well, season 2 has been going on. It seems like everything's been fine, just been making episodes, doing their thing. And episode 3 had them come back to 2024, which is 2 years ahead of us, so not too far, not in the near distant future. And the people that come in, mainly Raffi, Seven, and Rios.
Yeah.
They have their experiences in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles is a very interesting city. I live here. Yeah. Solar lives here.
And pretty easy for Paramount to film in. So
yeah, because it's right here.
Or it's like, well, yeah, no, we can't lay down in there. Where can we go? Home. I'm like, France?
I'm like, you France? No, okay. Home LA. So, needless to say, they come to LA, they see kind of the society that they did not grow up in or around. And, noticeably, they have comments about it. They have comments about the homelessness. They have comments about police.
Economic disparities.
Economic disparities. Stuff that's kind of essentially been solved by the time we get to Star Trek. Like,
by the time we
get to like Kirk and Picard and all of them, they kind of like they don't even have like money in Star Trek world. Like now it's our world, but it's this future world. But you know what I mean. So
yeah, and Star Trek's future, Earth is like past money, past need everybody has got a nice house, everybody gets a total education. So in the words of Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation, people can focus on who they want to be and what they want to do. Like, so we're a post scarcity, post economic society.
Yeah.
And I'm
and
like,
post racism, all that, like a real post racial society, not the one Soledad O'Brien told you about. So
you can't have racism, and you can't be like, hey, that guy's black when you got Ferengi and Klingons, and it's like, well, at least we all from Earth, all right? We all from the same planet, yeah, all right.
Like Independence Day, remember everybody banded together real quick. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
Normally they would not let a black man lead them, but today, we'll lay down our issues today.
All right. Since we're being conquered by aliens, but it gotta be aliens.
Sure,
you gotta be aliens.
Welcome to Earth. Nah, shouts to Will Smith. But
and see, in fairness, that wasn't Earth, that was Earth. ERF. See, it was a different universe. See,
so needless to say, people might have their feelings about LA, what's going on in LA, what's going on in our country right now. And after seeing this episode, Rios is also admitted to a kind of like a clinic, depending on where you're living, like patient first, depending on if you don't have a clinic like this, or kind of like there's doctors there, but it's not a full hospital. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's essentially just, it's a community clinic put together by a doctor or a couple of nurses that are like, people need help. They ain't got no money. And, now for cultural context, he landed over by MacArthur Park. And when I was growing up, like MacArthur Park, it's beautiful piece of land. It looks gorgeous during the day, but you don't want to get caught over there like past 4 o'clock. Like when I was growing up, that was the place to buy the fake IDs. That was I ain't lying. That's essentially where a lot of the bad stuff that like Compton and South Central, it was on that level. It was, and it's closer to downtown. But yeah, MacArthur
it's essentially downtown. Like exactly. I would consider MacArthur Park like, I guess you'd say the beginning of downtown. Like if you're coming, for you guys to get an idea.
East side.
If you're coming
from the east side, yeah.
If you're coming in to, it's kind of like the beginning of downtown.
Yeah.
But even when they were showing LA, I even made a joke to Lisa. I was like, they better keep showing these flyovers, because once you get on the ground and see all these homeless people, you're gonna be like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah. And they were showing the current shanty towns over by the 10 and the 101. They were showing MacArthur Park. And then, I had to laugh because when Rios got teleported, it was like, you got, the black, the black cast member who was like, look at me, I'm a combat guy, landing by a taco truck by an alley. And then you got Seven, look, I'm Jerry Ryan and I'm hot and all that stuff, and I'm landing here. And then you got poor Del Rios being teleported to a story and a half up on the wrong side of a fire escape. I'm just like, man.
Of course, I mean, now we're getting to a point where explaining kind of what the surroundings. Now, I do have my issues with this episode. I will say, I think this season, I care more about this season than I did last season. But I got my issue with this episode. But my issue with this episode have nothing to do with what we're going to get into in a second. So,
your issues is what was going on the ship?
Actually, no, the ship was kind of cool. It was the way, what we're talking about now. Somebody teleports here. Somebody teleports there. Up, here we go. Because we already heard no cops, no hospitals. I was like, here we go. Here, of course. Yeah. There's everybody, come on now. We've been had the best, teleport, skills and technology. Now all of a sudden, why didn't everybody fall? Oh, now just one person falls. Oh, Rios. And it just happens to fall in the right place. Now.
Well, I can what I can say is knowing this city as well as I do, okay, because this is my turf. Yeah. One, I like that there was finally a transporter accident like that, because that technology can't work all the time. You got to reboot your computer every once in a while.
It should be able to like 3D map where you're at and build.
Their ship was messed up. Their ship was messed up.
Okay, all right. The queen messed it up. All right.
And you're not dropping Jerry Ryan off of a balcony. And you sure ain't dropping the sister off a balcony. Especially after the emotional work that she's been going through. So who you gonna drop? Patrick Stewart?
Can't drop him. He's a little too fragile. Even when he's walking around, he looked fragile.
Yeah, you could have dropped him during TNG, but you can't drop him now.
Nah. So, but anyway, he gets admitted to one of these clinics. One of these clinics turned out to be a clinic where they treat like undocumented citizens. Well, technically not citizens, but undocumented visitors. I don't know.
Undocumented migrants.
Yeah.
The poor. Gunshot wounds.
So pretty much that's what they do.
Yeah. And see, that's a big one, because hospitals are legally obligated to report, like there's no patient doctor privilege when it comes to injuries that were not just gunshot wounds are the obvious, but if the doctor or nurse suspects that the injury was attained in a knowingly illegal act, they have to report it. So that includes stab wounds, stranglings.
I thought it was
compound fractures, things like that.
I thought it was just gunshot wounds and anything with injuries to children. So
it's really one of these things of, if they don't buy your story, and there has to be, and there has been rather, a history of that kind of thing with your demographic in that area, they got to call the popo.
Okay.
And when it comes to gunshots, well, guns have one primary purpose. They can be used as a hammer, but let's be real.
Yeah, guns are only used for one thing.
So like if a patient shows up with 13 stab wounds, they got to call the one or two. That's one thing. 13, they got to call the cops. So this clinic is to treat those people who
sort of with no questions asked.
It's treat the patient, don't try and lock them up.
So this clinic, of course, we're in Los Angeles, and of course there's undocumented people here, probably in a higher number than maybe some other states. So there's a lot of people from south of the border. So of course they're speaking Spanish, and Rios speaks Spanish and all that, and then of course what seemed to be like ICE agents come in.
Yeah.
So all right, so ICE agents come in. They, the migrants, they kind of like get out. They run out and everything. And Rios
the place gets raided.
Yeah, they get raided, and Rios gets locked up. I.e., no hospitals. He did that, and no cops. He did that, and he lost his communicator. But let's throw it out the window, because that whole thing was just completely avoidable, and that's my actual issue with this episode. But someone else,
your issue is lazy writing. Okay.
Yes. Oh, I gotta go. Well, can't give me this. Finders keepers. Well, what if I give you I want a cookie. Oh, can't have a cookie. Oh, well, I'm going to take this from him and give it back to you, but not yet. I'm going to sit it over here, and then raise your hand if you would have just mushed that kid in the head, took your communicator, and walked out. Thank you. Give me this. Get out of my face. They would have like, oh, did that dude just disappear? The end. Let's move on with the story. We got things to do. But anyway, that's beside the point. Someone else had another issue. I'm going to bring this up on screen and read it for y'all. Someone quote tweeted them and was like, Picard doing the Lord's work. But right here you can see, oh boy, sadly, here goes the quote. Sarah Lynn Meischner kind of quote tweeted them and said, hey, they're doing the Lord's work. Picard is doing the Lord's work. And
like, hey,
the
look,
writer,
a nice little thing from a fan. That's good. You know, it's like, I like the show. This is good stuff.
Yeah, and the fan says, screw Picard. After seeing episode 3, your woke agenda just caused me to cancel you. You could have been a great show for everyone. Instead, you want to lecture us Americans, especially us conservatives. So be it. But it will be a cold day in before you make me feel pity for illegal aliens or the traitors who helped them. Good riddance, Picard. Ooh, they laid it down. They let you know they was not pleased with Picard on any level, because now Picard's done a whole bunch of stuff. All right, this is season 2. Well, maybe not a whole bunch of stuff, but they've done a good amount of stuff. But when they drew the line at illegal aliens and the traitors that helped them, before I get into this, let me go ahead. Before I get into this, I've shared it to Solar so he can see it on his phone too, just in case you need to reference it again. But I'll let Solar get started first, because he's a guest. I don't want to jump over, and he's a cinematic sorcerer. I'm gonna let him sorcerize right now. All right, if you have any thoughts on that statement, it's a lot. There's a lot in this statement, but. Oh man.
Malcolm X said that a man cusses, a man uses profanity for lack of better words. And you run a family-friendly channel.
Yes.
Thank you for thinking about me. Because I have words. I have many words. My words are colorful.
Ooh.
My words are eloquent. My words, sometimes I string them together in a tapestry to paint a picture.
Would they happen to be as flowery as Joss Whedon's?
Oh, I have words for him as well. Today, my words are bye. Go ahead, cancel. See, here's the thing. I have an issue, triggers, if you will. One of my biggest triggers is when someone turns the imparting of information into an offensive act. Okay. Now I'm going to break this down thing by thing by thing. All right.
All right.
Lecturing Americans and especially conservatives. What's the lecture? You go to downtown LA right now at the time of this video, and you will see the shanty towns.
You don't have to I'm in West LA. You don't even have to go downtown.
Yeah.
On my block.
I'm saying you go there, you'll see them all the way on the way. They'll trickle here, trickle there. And as you get closer to the Staples Center, you will start seeing the shanty town. I'm expecting really good reggae to start coming out of there at some point. Second, if you go to a primarily Latino area, you will see ICE raids. Now they just put that on camera. That's all they did. Where's the lecture? Are they saying it's bad? It's terrible? I watched that episode and I didn't see them going, there was one statement with a civilization run like this, it's a wonder that they didn't fall faster than they did.
Yeah. If I was to say the lecturing it came from Seven and Raffi about kind of the financial issues.
Yeah.
But Go ahead.
So, yeah. So just by showing what things look like, these conservatives, because I honestly believe that people like this give conservatism a bad name.
Yeah.
All right. For the record, viewers, you don't get more liberal than I do. It is literally impossible. But,
It's literally impossible.
Just because I am way liberal, that doesn't mean I don't have respect for the opinions of people that don't share my views. And just because I don't share someone's views doesn't mean I don't respect their reasons for having them or their logic when there is reason and logic. So with that being said, I didn't quite see the lecture against Americans and conservatism. That's like me getting upset, all 6'4" of me getting upset with a little kid looking at me saying, "Hey, mister, you're really tall." And I'd be like, "Don't you lecture me about your kindergarten agenda." You know, I mean, seriously, to a kindergartner, I am a giant. And if they look at me as tall as I am and say that I am tall, if I take that as a lecture or an insult, that's on me.
Yeah.
If people get footage of a shanty town in downtown LA and an ICE raid in a Mexican neighborhood or a Latino neighborhood under the assumption that they are illegal Mexicans, that's not a lecture. That's just a picture. You know, I mean, do we take the weather report? Yeah, do we take the weather report as a lecture about environmentalism? You know, it's raining. Oh, don't you lecture me about carbon points. You see what I mean? And second, the woke agenda.
There's certain buzzwords that you about to hear. You about to hear some bull in a second.
Now,
like when you hear certain buzzwords, like when somebody says woke, just get ready, strap in. When someone says agenda, now the trip is there are agendas in media. There are. The only thing is, it's kind of like one of those things that are now overused. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, overused, I don't mind. Poorly defined or falsely defined, I do.
And I'll get on that in a second, but continue.
Yeah. Because I'm going, oh, woke agenda. Now, this got me kicked out of quite a few churches. I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
Because it's like, oh man, yeah, this leftist, this woke agenda. I'm like, I'm going to humor you and say that there is an agenda because I am on the left. What is the agenda? Good education, good housing, good employment, good health care for everyone, period, no questions asked. Oh, we're evil. You know, I mean, if the left gets what they want, people will be able to shop where they want, live where they want, marry what they want, or marry what or who they want, have a job that makes sure they don't starve and actually be able to create a future for themselves with a little dignity. The agenda on the other side is to keep things the way they are, with people getting more and more angry about not having enough money to live, constantly having to move to places that they don't want to live because they can't afford it, jobs only paying you enough to keep you JOB, as in just over broke. If there were agendas, I think I would go for the first one. The one that assures healthy children and an educated public versus the one that says you're free to starve and to not get medical care and to not get an education and to not be able to raise yourself up out of your circumstances because resources are being withheld and criteria are being raised by the day. So if there is a leftist agenda, I've never had a single person that talks about the woke agenda explain it to me clearly.
Yes.
But most of the people I say use that, or most of the people I talk to that use those words stand behind hate and keeping people down. You know, it's like, well, they got this agenda of what? Well, they want to take over the country and do what with it? You know what I mean?
Well, I remember I was in a conversation with this guy. We would go back and forth about different TV shows, movies, whatever. And it was always a comment about, you know, this is woke, this is trash, this agenda, they're pushing agenda, this, that, and the third. And one time I just drilled him down into like, we have to define what woke is, because I'm not sure exactly what you mean when you say woke. And sometimes, because whenever you're making an argument, whenever you're arguing with someone, it's like, okay, we need a baseline for what this is. Because when you say this, I think this. When you say this, you think that. So we need to know what we mean when we say woke. And I drill down. Woke is basically removing a white man from anything. That's what it meant to him.
Yes.
And I just let him say that. I just because I was like, we were talking about this or that show, and I was like, yeah, that's not a show that I would consider woke. And then he mentioned
now, do you mean remove?
He mentioned,
well, when you say removing a white man from anything, do you mean remove their presence entirely or just keep them from the dominant position?
Yeah, essentially, like, so say if they change the sex of this character, or change the race of this character, or now the story isn't about this character, it's about their best friend or their cousin or something, anything like that changes anything from essentially the white man being the lead of this show, then it's either a feminist agenda or a sexist agenda or a woke agenda, which do exist. They do exist. I've seen them. I've been like, yeah, they definitely, like, come on, man. This ain't an after school special. Like, it does happen, but everything isn't it. So, once I drilled down and found out, I was just like, oh, okay, cool. So basically, you want to go back to the world I grew up in, where the only hero
you
that
were
can
given
exist,
everything, and I had to fight for half. Got it.
Like the only hero you could ever see is a white guy. Now I don't. Now I have options. You know, thank the Lord, I have options. But now I have options. I'm not forced to watch something with like 95 white people, one black guy, and like one white Latino guy. And when I say white Latino, this is not
no
to diss
accent.
Latinos. This is a diss. This is a diss on the usage of colorism under white supremacy. So
yes,
you were just born as a white Latino. Now, the usage of you to claim diversity while keeping the colorism that keeps white people happy is a whole nother thing. But we don't have time for that. We're on Star Trek. Let's get out of here. so
that's for our meeting next Tuesday down by the docks.
Next Tuesday.
By the way, good lecture last night, bro. Good.
Yeah, thank you. To the Black Awareness rally. When you hear woke, most of the time what they mean is that either a group of white people or a white established organization is being shown in a bad light, or maybe not a heroic light, or someone's being kind of either parodied with something or removed from something in service of something else. So they probably didn't mind season 1 of Picard because, hey, Picard's the star. He's definitely in the front, and you know everyone's behind him. Now we're in a situation where everybody has kind of like their own solo missions and their own little stories, where they're not exactly tied to him in that way.
They're not subservient to him.
Yeah. Everybody else has to kind of go and do their thing while he stays with Jurati and the Queen. So now everybody else is getting their little bit of shine. Now, my problem with the episode is the writing was lazy as all get out. Like, he should have been gone. And there's other ways to keep him there the whole time. But when you say woke agenda, I don't think Star Trek Star Trek has been talking about this for a long time, about
like since 1965.
Yeah,
like
so
nothing has changed.
But even to knock Star Trek, for most of the time, a white man has been in charge and in that chair. So even though they were saying,
have you noticed that most of these criticisms have come from, or have been aimed at Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Discovery?
Yeah. so usually, even though, okay, because this goes to Star Trek and also to other heroes as well. People will be like, oh, well, people don't like Captain America for what he's doing, but that's what he's always been about. Yes and no. I mean, yes, he's always been about heroism and all that, and being good to everyone and being fair and giving everyone a hand when they need it. But he's also been a white blonde guy or a white strapping man with the American flag all over his body. It was never anyone else. Just like Star Trek, it was always some white man, and everyone else was behind supporting them, which is what a certain subset of conservatism, because I know people are gonna be like, well, conservative. I'm like, yes, I know the baseline of conservative, but conservatives,
let's call them
as
the vocal
group,
minority of conservatism.
Yes, because the conservative group has essentially been operating as
since the 70s. That has been their great big, that's been their rallying point, let's say.
Right, let's go back.
Yeah, and when people talk to me about this in real life, like offline, not in public, I'm like, okay, you see that feeling that you have right now, that feeling that you have right now when you're talking about Miles Morales, Kamala Khan, Carol Danvers, Luke Cage, I'm like, that feeling that you're feeling right now is what I have felt my entire life. I had to change my thinking and find a hero in Peter Parker because there were no other characters that looked like me that had my circumstances. So if you're fighting against having to expand your mind and find other traits, traits other than visual to identify with or find an admirable piece of a character, then that has nothing to do with the writers, dude. Because one of my closest friends, little white guy, and that's his name, by favorite, the way. Huh?
LG Dub.
Yeah, one of my closest friends, little white guy, his favorite superhero growing up was Wolverine. Not because Wolverine is gravelly or he kills people, but because Wolverine is short. And there are no other short superheroes other than Puck, So you got the midget from Canada who's covered in hair and spends most of his time cartwheeling, but then you've got a war hero who looks after kids, goes on missions for himself, comes and goes as he pleases. So you got a clown and you got a BA. Yeah. And he told me back in 2000, he was mad when they cast Hugh Jackman because Hugh Jackman is my size. And I'm like, you know what? I'm with that. Because one of my favorite X-Men of all time was Nightcrawler. I love me some Nightcrawler because he's pre-Bishop. So the only other person of color they had, or the only other person on the X-Men that was as dark as I was Storm. And that's, I don't want that
depends
kind of
on
power.
what they want to do with Storm.
True.
That's a whole nother conversation. That's a different day.
And growing up, like with our skin color, we either had to bond with the characters for their traits, or we had to bond with the green guys.
Yeah, we had to steal green characters and say they was us.
Yeah, we had Piccolo.
We had like, Piccolo's black. Or you had to be like, Panthero's black.
Yeah. Look at how he's talking to Goku, or look at how he's talking to Gohan. Wah. Stop crying. Stop crying.
Like, oh, that's a black daddy right there.
Exactly. So growing up with that, I'm like, this is the point of view, like what you're feeling right now is a hyperversion of what I and people like me and little girls have been feeling since the dawn of entertainment. Like, keep in mind, the first person on film that looked like me was a dude that was getting lynched in Birth of a Nation. So, you're talking about, oh man, they're lecturing conservatives and lecturing America, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, one, they're not making you look like the bad guy. All they're doing is showing what it's like for people that don't look like you. If you think that that's a lecture, that's a lecture. But if you gonna get on your high horse, allow me to get on my elephant. Because negative depictions of non-white people have been on film, on TV, and in comic books since their inception.
And still going.
Inception.
Still going. I mean, we just getting a couple shows, and y'all mad about a few shows. But I did not hear these arguments when we were the criminal, when we were the crack mother, when we were the gang member.
Tokens.
Never heard these. I never heard these. There was no agenda then. It was all okay. And one could say that there was an agenda at that time, and still an agenda of mass media, to view Black people, especially Black men, at the bottom. Especially when you look at the stats of pretty much just about every stat item in America, Black men are at the bottom, and not the bottom in a good way, like the bottom is the best. No, bottom in a bad way. Whether you look at,
I would argue Native Americans, but I get what you're saying. But that's a whole nother show. But Native Americans actually, well, that's another show. That's another show, because even Native Americans have called out Native Americans, especially the five civilized tribes, for owning slaves. And so that's another show. Y'all, but at the same time, since it's another show.
It's another show.
But and don't get me wrong, I've been calling out Star Trek for this type of thing for decades, because I'm like, the first Black person on Star Trek that didn't have any prosthetics or any mechanical augmentation was Cisco. And then I got mad at the end of the show. But before then, we had Uhura with the thing in her ear, who was a glorified secretary. But hey, it was 1965. She was there. So that says a whole bunch. She was there.
She was on the bridge. She was there.
But the two Black cast members of The Next Generation, one was essentially a monster from an uncivilized culture, and the other one was someone who had a disability. And I'm just kind of going, seriously, can we not just have a normal Black human on the show that's good at their job?
And so I did want to get to this is something that I think is interesting on his statement. The next statement, we talk about being woke. Woke is usually a BS term just to say that we don't like anyone being glorified except white people. But before you make me feel pity for illegal aliens or the traitors who help them. Now, it probably don't get like he said, it probably don't get no more liberal than us. Black men, look it up yourself. FBI, CDC, who dies the most from COVID, who's the most homeless, who's the most, look all across the line, who's the most disciplined in schools. Just look right down the line. There's probably not going to be anyone more liberal than Black men. But I do have an issue. There are certain issues to be argued and had over immigration. Valid issues. I get it. But this situation of traitors?
Okay.
What do you think is going on to where you have to call someone to trade? We're not at war with anyone. At least I was under the impression we're not at war with anyone. Now, somebody, you can make your argument about rising prices and inflation and this, that, and the third about a war that we're not even in, but that's a whole other thing too.
Well, traders
for giving medical aid.
These are, well, technically, yes, and there is historical context for that, and I can see where their head is going. But here is my problem, okay? And I got to disagree with you about the problem with immigration and all that stuff, because I'm not a conspiracy theorist, okay? I don't even have a tinfoil hat. Mine is actually made out of a very nice velvet, and it's got sigils and stuff on it. But we only talk about the immigration problem, or should I say illegal immigration is only a problem when it comes to our southern border.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about just the southern border.
Well, I'm the people in that minority, that vocal conservative minority, only talk about southern border immigration. They don't talk about European illegal immigration. They don't talk about Canadian illegal immigration. Second,
they don't even really talk about Asian illegal immigration.
Yeah. So, and this is the part that just gets on my
model minority status, hyper assimilation, and that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. And this is the part that gets on my last nerves when it comes to this. You remember what I said about logic and reason? Okay. The illegal immigration argument is made by people that don't know immigration law. Okay. According to the Geneva Convention of the 1940s, the moment any human being steps on the sovereign soil of any other country and seeks asylum, they are there legally. That is international law, which does not, which supersedes independent country law. Okay, it's like real talk. The people who sneak over the border because they're being hunted down by the cartels, that is legal. That is allowed under global law. Okay.
Well, even if you're not being hunted down, I mean, all right. So imagine this for a second. Do you really want to raise your kids around that mess?
Speak up a little bit. What was that?
Your kids around that mess. So you might not be hunted down, but like most Def has a song where it's like all your little kids is getting bigger. You trying not to raise them around these wild. You know what I'm saying? It's like, look, I gotta get out this place. I ain't got no money. I can't get no loan, but I gotta get out of here because sooner or later, these gang members are gonna be looking at my son like a new recruit.
Yeah.
He ain't doing that. He's 5, he's 6 now, he's 7. Shoot, sooner or later, they're gonna be asking him to take this bag over there. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so I gotta get out of here, no matter what, no matter how. You know what I'm saying? So they don't have to be getting chased down to be like, yo, look, it's wild out here. And I'm just
according to international asylum laws. Yeah,
you know
according to international asylum laws, you have to have a credible fear of danger to yourself and or your family. And what you just described is a credible fear, and that is the whole thing. That is legal. But see, these people that talk about illegal immigrants, with the people, they're like, they took our jobs. Guys, I'm like, I know farmers, and the farmers I know would happily hire you to get out there and pick their strawberries, but you won't take that job. But if you want to get on the people that are mowing the lawns, picking the fruit and all that other stuff and say, oh, they're here illegally, they shouldn't blah, 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 blah. Then instead of hunting them down, hunt down the people who hire them.
Thank you. I'm glad you say that because I was about to make a good. All right. So, when President Obama was in office, there were a couple of like big raids, and there was a big one at a meat packing plant in Pennsylvania. It was like, all on the news, and they like showed them walking out with the ice and going in the walking out with the ice, but like walking out with bags of ice. But no, walking out with ice. But they were walking out with ice and getting in the vans and everything. It was like this big thing, like, oh, look at do the perp walk. And I was like, you know what's interesting? The person who hired these people illegally, because this is illegal, right? The person who hired these
they ain't
people,
paying taxes on them.
The person running this meatpacking plant, somehow they're not part of this walk. Somehow it's interesting. So
yeah, and see,
all I'm saying is, where is the smoke for the people that provide the if we're gonna say who provide the carrot that the person comes to? We're gonna say, all right, let's the person is bad. Cool. But why is the person coming here? We never want to ask that. We never want to ask that.
Here's
because the person that's providing the carrot is also lobbying to have these people here on the low, so I can pay them what I want, treat them how I want, do what I want with them, because we really want slavery back.
It's called maximizing profit.
Yes, because we really want slavery back on the low, but we ain't gonna say it.
I'm not going to assign any motive to those people. What I will say, and I can say this because and the historical context for the trading thing I was talking about, John Wilkes Booth. Okay. After he shot Lincoln, he ran away, and he had to jump off a balcony, or he fell. One way or another, he broke his leg, and the doctor that treated him, the doctor who broke his leg, he was tending to his leg when he got caught. So when John Wilkes Booth was tried and executed, the doctor was tried and executed as well for aiding and abetting a treasonous party. So he was guilty by association.
Yes, but that is not even close to what that is when people say reach, like,
oh no, I mean that's just the legal precedent.
That is
in order for
reach.
This guy, who I'm so glad that they scratched out his name, because when you sent that thing to me last night, I was like, I'm going to Twitter, and nope, I am too old for this. I am too educated. Yes. And I am spending my time trying to make sure that I live the life that I want to. And that is a life where I am not gut-wrenchingly arson-based angry all the time.
And
so
we can also have a show where we can talk about it and maybe provide a small look into like what Star Trek is about. And have some like-minded individuals come in, make some comments, and that's the third.
Even honestly, I wouldn't even mind any opposing points of view, because maybe they're seeing something I don't see. Yeah. But see, this whole thing about Trader and the rhetoric and the illegal immigrants, here's the thing. Most people in the world want three things. They want to live safely. Mm-hmm. They want a future for their children.
Yep.
And they want to stay healthy. That's it. That's all they want. Now, this whole argument rhetoric that goes down, that puts people in teams and forces them through ideology, be it the ideology of conservative and liberal, or Christian divisives, be it, free Presbyterians, locked up Presbyterians, Orthodox, Methodist, Evangelical, Baptist, Southern Baptist, Catholic, whatever. All this stuff, all these things, all of these points are presented to everyday Americans that just want to make sure that they can earn a living, take care of their kids, and be safe, by people who benefit from the opinions that are brought about by that noise. Okay. I don't think there's like an overall conspiracy theory. I don't believe in the Illuminati, but I do look at Congress. I do look at who funds Fox News and who funds CNN, and all of, like, I remember studying the Southern strategy, Nixon's Southern strategy for to convert Dixiecrats and all that stuff, because you know, the South was Democrat, even though they wasn't down with the Democratic Party stuff. And when we had that Southern strategy to demonize people that weren't down to earth tax-paying Southern white farmers, you know, the fact of the matter is people have always had opinions of opposition, opinions of segregation, and we can't change that. However, once people started building their political careers by irritating those wounds, that is when stuff started going down, you know? And it's like, we're on this team thing now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who benefits from this team? You know, I mean, like I said, I've been kicked out of quite a few churches. And I'm like, why is this black church touting the same line as the Proud Boys and the Charlottesville guys? Oh, because they're all Christian. And this is what the Christian side is supposed to be doing. And I'm like, but what about all the pink parts? You know, for those of you not in the know, everything that Christ actually said in the Bible is written in pink in the New Testament. Yeah. I'm like,
or written in red, depending on, you know.
Yeah, red and pink. Yeah. So I'm like,
so
this is what he said. You know, this is that. So how does what you're saying line up with that? How are saying that people that come in from our southern borders are all these criminals and all that? Like, I see suffer the children unto me. I see all this, and I don't have your beliefs. I'm just reading your book. You know what I'm saying? You know,
as someone who grew up in the church, someone who's a preacher's kid, I can do a whole series of shows of why the black church, at least, I can't speak to no one else. The black church has lost credibility. I can do a whole series on that. But yes.
Call me up for that one too. We can swap stories.
People love cherry picking the Bible. They love it. And they also love cherry picking the Bible without context. Because there's many times in the Bible where, say, somebody might be speaking to a certain group of people about a certain thing that's going on in their certain city at that certain time. And they want to take that statement and apply it to 2022.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there are certain things that apply flatly. You might want to go to a book called Proverbs, which I think is probably one of the best books in the Bible. I mean, of course, you know, Jesus isn't in it, but Proverbs is straight and plain, nothing but gems all the way through. Like, if you hang with fools, you'll be a fool. If you're foolish with money, you'll be broke. It's like the whole book is like that. It's nothing but gems all the way through. But people love cherry picking that thing to the point where I'm like, especially being someone who's like read a lot of it or studied a lot of it, or, you know, and it's like, hey, I actually Bible studied on that like 2 months ago. Yeah, you're way wrong, and you're starting in the middle of the verse. You need to actually go to the beginning of the chapter where they set the scene of where they're at. It's like
you mean context?
Yeah,
context
like, you need to go
determining
back.
Meaning. Who would have thought?
Like, because when you go to the beginning of the chapter, it says, when he came to such and such, a city of such and such. Okay, cool. Now we know what's going on. Now we know why he's saying this, like, or why she's saying this, whatever it is. But so people love cherry picking that thing. And when it comes to immigration, this show of all shows should be one where you should expect something like this. Star Trek, by and large, shows us a better and more better meaning as far as finance, education, as far as social issues, all around. A better
the easiest
society.
Future to live in of all sci-fi.
Yes.
So
this actually Star Trek might have the only future that isn't like all desert and destitute. Like every other future is like Book of Eli. Like
we got Book of Eli, we got Blade Runner,
Mad Max,
Farscape. Yeah, I mean it's the only aspirational, or at least the most popular aspirationally sci-fi property that has been out there. Currently, it's the only sci-fi that goes, the future is going to be cool. Check it out. And not even the Jetsons had that. The Jetsons was, the future is going to be just like today, but there's going to be cooler toys. That's about it.
So my comment to this, whoever put this on here, and you can kind of see he has an M in his name. I don't know. You kind of see an M maybe, but
I ain't even looking. I ain't looking because
my thing is, if it's a better society, it had to get better than something. So we have to acknowledge. I think it's kind of like the issue where someone knows something's messed up, but when someone tell you about yourself, you're like, you can't tell me nothing. Ain't nothing wrong with me. It's like, no, you definitely know something's wrong with you. Even you said something was wrong with you yesterday. Well, it don't matter because it's coming out of their mouths and I don't like it. So since they said there's something wrong with me, now there's nothing wrong with me. And it's like,
see, that's the thing.
The society has to be better than something. Okay, if it's better, it's not just technology that's better.
Nope.
It's the status of the people living inside of that technology that surrounds their society. What is this society?
The environment that cultivated the invention of that technology.
Yeah, like, it had to get better than something. So if you look at this place where you have hyper wealth, and trust me, I live in LA. You live in LA. You can have Beverly Hills, hyper wealth. You can have Bel Air. There is really a Bel Air out here. Hyper wealth. You can have Calabasas, hyper wealth. And then turn the corner and there's people
3 miles away.
People living in a cart. Now, Beverly Hills is pretty good about that homeless stuff. They and what I mean by pretty good is they're pretty good at shoving them out. But the second you take a step outside of Beverly Hills,
cleanest alleys I have ever seen. But go to Century City.
Man, go to Century City, which is right
beside it.
Go to
West Hollywood. Yeah.
Right beside it.
Any other neighboring cities, you can almost see that the border is created by homeless carts. At this point, it's like
you have apartments that are like $2,500 for a 1-bedroom, and there's a guy sleeping on the steps outside of that building.
Bro,
like, that's
real
the
talk.
So, at the very least, someone has to say, "This isn't how it's supposed to be." Now,
Bruh,
once
real
again,
talk.
I don't have all the answers, but you can look at that and be like, "Oh, there's this amazing building." And there's this hyper wealth like building with windows and cool architecture and everything. And there's a guy peeing right here on the side of the building because he has nowhere to go. Like
real talk. Go a half mile in any direction away from Disneyland. Okay. I know, like when I was living in Orange County, I think it was like 2014, 2015, I found out that there is a large percentage of Disneyland employees that live in their car.
Wow.
And I'm just like, this is a dystopia, sorry to kill the magic.
Living in the happiest place on earth.
No,
living in your car.
Making the happiest place on earth, the happiest place on earth. But as soon as them gates close, do.
You're living in your car.
Yes.
Yes. It's bad. It's bad to the point, like, okay, where I live, when I first moved here, I've been in LA like 10. This year is 11 years for me.
Okay.
So I could say that, hey, I've been here long enough to say, hey, I kind of know LA, at least my area of LA pretty well. You know what I'm saying? When I first moved here, this whole stretch, there were like 0 homeless people here. Like there were homeless people like in Venice and stuff like that. But where I am now, it's to the point where, I'm gonna keep it real with you. It's to the point where I don't even like walking with my son outside for a walk because people are right out front wilding, fighting, arguing with each other, throwing bottles at each other, all kinds of stuff. I don't know what somebody, you know what I'm saying? And not to say that's every single person, but when you have a child, your whole job, well, don't let somebody on some reality show tell it, but your whole job is to ensure that child's future, not to make sure that you get popular or so off of your child. But
Well,
that's a whole other thing. so
yeah,
like,
keep the child safe and make sure they don't grow up to be a jerk. That's our job.
yeah.
And
So
yeah,
you-
I mean,
you come
I
outside
live
and you're
across
like,
the
well, I
street
can't
from a
even do
park.
that.
Yeah, I live across the street from a public park. So, and truth is, I'm on the south side. And how can I put it? Whatever the rich people don't want makes its way down here. Okay. Don't get me wrong, I do have a lot of homeless, but they ain't crazy, they ain't dangerous, they just ain't showered. Yeah, I mean, that the thing is though, it's real. It's one of the things of, I don't use profanity in front of children just because I don't want to hear it from the parents. Because or I don't use profanity around tweens because I don't want to hear it from the parents. I'm like, I may not be saying it in front of them, but I know what they hear at school. I remember junior high.
Yes. They're saying everything.
They're saying everything, and they're doing a lot more than you think. And or at least trying. That's where I was. I was in the trying category. But yeah, so just taking a picture of a certain place is not a lecture. Okay.
No.
And I get that some people are like, well, I just want to escape reality and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, that's great. That's dandy. Go do drugs or something. The thing is, on one hand, we got people saying, I want to escape reality and I don't want to think about the world that I live in. When I watch TV, I'm looking for escapism. And then when they get it, those same people are going, that ain't realistic. I can't buy that. It's like, you know what? I don't care what you want. This is what's on. And don't complain to me. Okay.
And Star Trek has kind of set a standard for what they want and what they're creating and kind of who they are. So, I guess in closing, well, you know what? To you, Solar Gray, do you have any final thoughts on this, or anyone who may be listening who might be like, hey, I don't like being preached to by the Trek.
Yeah. You see this? This is a mouse. The Trek happens on a streaming service. All you got to do is move a little arrow and push a little X in the corner, and you don't have to get preached to by Star Trek. Okay. It's one of these things of, if this was 1985 and we only had 4 channels, your outrage would carry more weight. But we live in the golden age of on-demand entertainment. So if you're upset at something that you're watching, watch something else. It's that, and there is something else out there to watch. There's so much entertainment out there that is specifically tailored to whatever it is you're looking for at the time, between Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Shudder, HBO Max, Disney Plus, YouTube, Nebula, Skillshare, and of course twitch.tv, where you can find me, twitch.tv/BID_P. So whatever you want to watch covering any subject is out there. You can find it, and chances are you can find it either for absolutely free or with something you're already paying for. So not to mention, there's still network TV out there. Yeah. I mean, it's not like your TV don't work. So, there's a few.
There is mindless fun stuff out there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole bunch of it. But the whole thing is, when you complain about, a certain property not being aimed specifically toward you to tell you that you are a good little boy, you are admitting that you're afraid of getting old. Okay. And I understand that fear too. There's so much entertainment out there that I just don't get because I'm not the demographic. Do not ask me about the new adventures of Gumball. I couldn't tell you. Don't ask me about half the things. My kid was
some
a
of it is actually
teenager by the
super
time
funny.
SpongeBob came out. So I'm like, I don't get what I'm looking at. So have fun. At least you ain't screaming. We good. You know, so but yeah, that's the thing. There is so much out there for everybody that when you complain about a specific thing not being for you, you sound like a whiny, spoiled child.
Yeah.
Be better
because
than that.
on this channel, I just don't cover stuff. If I don't like anything, I just don't
Yeah.
cover it.
Yeah.
I just don't cover it. Herbert Scott comes through way in the final thoughts. Stacey Abrams was looking thick with 2 C's on Star Trek Discovery. Loved it. That's, you know what? That is a great way to end this show.
Yeah. You know, like I said on Sunday, as soon as I saw that, yeah, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, they gonna get letters. They gonna get letters.
So I guess my final thoughts on this is I can see where you might feel, or even get the idea that someone's trying to preach to you through Star Trek. But I would say that Star Trek has never preached to anyone. They've just shown them a different, maybe better way. Now, if you don't like that better way, I guess I get it. But if you ask me, space travel, not having to worry about money, being able to live a life to just be the best you are at what you do, not having to worry about how safe or unsafe your family is, not having to worry about need or want or, hunger or, homeless shelters or none of that. All these things are gone. I think that's a better way. You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, there's some people that feel like, hey, well, if I had to go through this, you should too. That's not particularly my view. Like for instance, if I went through something, I hope that my next generation doesn't have to. I honestly feel sad when I see that the youth that look like me have to take to the streets because the youth that looked like me, at the time, we just couldn't get it done. And the adults before us, they couldn't get it done. And the adults before them thought they got it done, but they were kind of hoodwinked and slow walked back into the same situation we're in now.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
And last I checked, it is the job of every generation to make it possible for the one following them to move forward.
Yeah.
Like, that's what all of Western society has been built on. Like, all of it, So it wasn't like our parents look at us going, or the parents that look at their kids saying, I had to go out there and steal cars, so you got to go out there and steal cars. They're not the venerated ones. The venerated ones are the ones that are like, I went out there to steal cars so you wouldn't have to. I'm from the streets. I sent you to college for a reason.
It's like I want you to have options. I don't want you to have to punch anyone's clock. I want you to be able to live free as you can in this country of those kinds of worries. So
I mean, even we from The Wire got that.
Yeah. So in Star Trek, just like in the last episode of Discovery, we see people working together, creating better understanding for one another. That's what we should be working for. I don't mind you not liking something. That's cool. The traitor part, bro, you might be drinking some Kool-Aid. The whole woke agenda, you might be drinking some Kool-Aid. Is there a woke agenda that exists? Yes. And usually that woke agenda is like co-opted by people that didn't even create the term woke. So it's not really that woke. It's just trendy, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, it's like if you hate the woke agenda, at least find out what it is. Talk to somebody that is woke and be like, what is this woke agenda? And we will happily be like, everybody clothed and fed and dressed and access to medical care, and access to a good education. you know. And it's like, what, you want that for free? We pay taxes too.
Yeah, we pay taxes too.
Yeah, it's just like, do you have to fight for survival in a society where we have airplanes? You know, it's not like we out there hunting tigers.
So just for a moment, maybe imagine that possibly you've grown up accepting another agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that agenda isn't the best agenda. And maybe you should question that agenda.
Yeah. When people talk to me about that and they tell me about their stuff, I just ask the question, are you actually happy with that, or are you used to it? Like, when you wake up in the morning, the majority of the time, do you look forward to what you do? That's all. Like, are you happy? Is the life that you have right now the life that you would be happy passing down to your daughter or son? You know, and of course that makes people defensive, but that's how I know that's how I know my words got through. You know what I mean? And because truth be told, I love what I do. You know, I got stress, and and a lot of those stresses are systemic, and I'm trying to work out those systemic stresses so that not only don't I have them, but so no one else has to feel them. So yeah, I mean, that's just the whole thing, but I guess I'm built different. I guess, you know, I was raised by people that were born in the 1800s. So I'm still on that kick where forget you got mine. That's not in my consciousness, you know? Yeah. So that's just where I am. And I try to understand. It's just, you know, when people want understanding and when they want to be seen and heard and acknowledged, it's a lot better to be willing to hear. Because the more you're willing to hear, the more people are willing to hear you. So
I mean, you guys, if you follow this channel long enough, you see me be like, you know what? Good point. I see where you're coming from on that. Like, especially if you've watched me cover anything with Nate, normally Nate and I disagree on tons of stuff, but I love his take on things. And I'm like, you know what? I see where you're coming from on that. All right. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that I particularly believe, but I'm like willing to be like, okay, I see where your thought process is, and I understand it. You know what I'm saying? And I'll give you that kind of thing. Just
because no one is wholly right, no one is wholly wrong. It's not, you know, existence isn't a zero-sum game. And I think that's what a lot of people are trying to look at, you know. Because they've been told by, funny thing is, people like this guy have been told by folks that have an agenda that everything is, that's it. If someone else gets something, you're losing something. Yeah, they're taking it from you.
It's coming directly from you.
And the people that are hearing that never go, well, hold up, you've got a lot more than me. So I would like some of that back, please.
So
I took this from your grandfather. Okay, then he wants it back. Oh wait, I'm next to Ken.
I'm next to Ken. So with that said, NERD, SOUL, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all them places. We got podcasts too. Like, share, subscribe for great conversation. You know what I'm saying? We talk about, you know, cool sci-fi genre stuff, and then have great conversations about it. You know what I'm saying?
Had to reopen the barbershop for a Wednesday morning, man.
Yep. You know, we had to open it up real quick, come in here, you know, get a couple quick cuts, and now we have it. So of course, shouts out to all the Patreon supporters, super chatters, cash appers, Garance, George, that won the blurred domination question. I got your stuff coming to you, or we might just DM me. We might link up, but I got your stuff coming to you. All your stuff is here, is ready for you to receive. I got some cool black comics for you. And anyone else, check out some black comics. They're good for your soul, and we got them right after this. So from us to you, thank you for watching. We got some dope beats. I'll Go See, Elixir, SP the Soul Prophet, Architron, whoever. So Until next time, may the Trek be with you. No. Until next time, just realize that Trek is here to show us a better way, and it's better for a reason. So from us to you, we'll be out. Peace. Yeah.
Finish him off! If you can't do it, then maybe you should let someone who can. Like